Welcome, everybody. It is so wonderful to see everybody's faces and participation today. As Angel just said, we truly are all sisters-in-law and brothers. For a few of us, Josh, thank you for being here from Vienna. And thank you all of you who are participating and joining us. I'm Jennifer Wilson. I'm the current chair of the Women in Law Committee of the J. Reuben Clark Law Society. And I, along with the other committee members, the Women in Law Committee members, are so happy to welcome you today to this Women in Law Leadership Conference entitled From Law Degree to Leadership. And we have a wonderful program planned today. And our hope is that all of you will leave feeling inspired and motivated to step up into your rightful place as leaders. Whether in the law society, in your community, in the political arena, and in your profession. Our presenters today are all incredible examples of leadership, and I am so excited to learn from them. So the format today consists of an opening plenary session that's going to last until 10 o'clock, 3 breakout sessions that'll run concurrently from 10 to 11 o'clock, and then a closing plenary session from 11:10 to 12 o'clock. We're going to get started, but before we go any further, I really wanted to extend a truly heartfelt thank you to Susannah Thomas for her incredible work in putting this conference together. She was our head planner, and I'm so grateful for the chance of and the opportunity for us to be together from all that she's done. I also want to thank her fellow planners, Kylie Hicks and Audrey Perry Martin, who are here today, who worked many hours alongside Susannah. These women are all part of our Women in Law Committee and are all incredible leaders in their own right. We also wanted to thank Forrest Hansen and Erin Fail for their help and support to get us up and running today and all their work alongside. So to begin our session, Candace Anderson, who is the chair-elect on the Women in Law Committee and also a presenter today, is going to offer an invocation. And then Susannah Thomas is going to speak to us for a minute and introduce our special guest, Josh Randall, who's joining us today from Vienna. Susannah. Candace.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful for this Saturday where we can gather together as individuals from all over the world to speak and share experiences with one another and how we might use our law degrees, our experience, the ways that we can help so many. We are thankful for the opportunities we've had to gain knowledge and the opportunities we've had to serve others. And we hope that we will have thy spirit with us, that we might be able to say things that will help others as they make important decisions about which paths to take and where they might make the greatest difference in the world. And we ask thee for a blessing upon each person participating today, that they will be in good health, that they will have thy spirit with them as they go throughout their work. And we are so grateful for all that we have, and we say these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
I guess I'll jump in here, but first of all, I need to also acknowledge Jenny, who was huge in the help with the planning of this conference too. So thank you, Jenny, and all the other planners and speakers. We really appreciate all of you spending time with us today. So it is my pleasure to introduce our very special guest, Josh Randall. He just recently finished a 2-year term as the international chair of the J. Reuben Clark Law Society, and prior to that has done many other leadership functions on the Law Society. He's also been recently a patent attorney with Holland and Hart in Salt Lake, but this past summer, I think it was, you were assigned to be an area legal counsel for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the Europe East area located in Moscow. Josh happens to be in Vienna today, so we are really grateful for him. And I, just on a personal note, just want to express my gratitude to Josh for being such an ally and a support to women in law and to women in the profession. And he did so much for Women in Law Committee as the chair, and just incredible in everything that he did to try to support us, make sure we were seen and that we functioned in a way that we felt like we were full participants. And I think that we always have, but he really went out of his way to make sure that we were just completely supported. And Josh, I want to turn the time over to you now. And again, thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your busy day today.
Thank you, Susannah. Those are really kind words. And it was just so fun to work with you and so many other great women in my role with the Law Society the past couple of years. I do apologize for the informal setting. In Moscow, they did a government COVID shutdown this week, and so we decided to get out of town and go do another adventure, and we ended up here in Vienna. I love the theme of this conference. I think there's going to be some wonderful principles taught, things that are very important for the women who are participating today and listening. There's a role for you, a very important role for you to play in many different organizations, places, and things that you can do. And I think sometimes we just need to be inspired. We need to be reminded of what our potential is. And today we're talking about the potential, the opportunities for wonderful women, each of you. I feel like I'm the least qualified person to be talking on this subject today, but I do have a couple of thoughts I wanted to share, and there's some things from my personal life that hopefully will be insightful. The first has to do with something that I learned from Sister Marjorie Hinckley, who's the wife of Gordon B. Hinckley, a former president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Her biography came out when my wife and I were in our early years of marriage, and we were struggling with raising our children. And I distinctly remember this story that she had shared, and this principle that she always tried to say yes to her children. Now, that was a little bit contrary to the way that my wife and I were raising our children. And so we talked about this and we prayed about it. And that ended up being a turning point in our marriage, because we started to try to say yes and only said no if we had a really good reason. And in fact, if we felt kind of compelled to say no, we tried to always say yes. And that became a great thing for us in the relationship with our children and in the way that we treated each other. This concept of saying yes unless there's something we feel strongly why we shouldn't say yes. And I think that kind of rolls over into what we're talking about today. There's a million reasons to say no when our lives are full and busy, and we're struggling to maintain balance. But I know that as we say yes and as we step up and take opportunities that come to us, that there are wonderful blessings that come. And I think that the reason that is true is because it's, as we say yes, it's an opportunity for us to exercise our agency. And I know that God has a deep and profound respect for agency. And when we choose to use our agency in righteous ways, and that opens the opportunity for him to give us blessings. And he knows better than anyone else the things that we need the most. And so as we make a positive step forward with faith to say yes and accept an opportunity, or at least have the desire to do that, then that gives him something to work with that wasn't there available before. One other thought, when I came on as the chair of the Law Society, at that time, the operations committee, which there's the board and they just meet quarterly, and then there's the operations committee and they meet every other week or more often, constantly talking about the operations of the Law Society, managing things. And when I came on, there was out of the 4 or 5 of us, there was Gayla Sorensen, and then there were 4 other men, actually, counting me. So I felt like, this isn't a very good balance, a good representation of the Law Society. We need to change this up a little bit. And so as I was looking for an executive secretary who would be serving during my 2-year term, I really was focused on finding a woman who could support us in that way. And so I asked around, did some homework, and a couple of people recommended Sarah Jenkins Dewey. And so I took Sarah out to lunch. We talked. And I found out she just had a baby a couple of months before that. She was still on maternity leave. She was working at a law firm and was ready to go back. And it wasn't really a great time in her life, but she said, you know what, I think I can do this. She said yes. Well, the wonderful thing that happened with Sarah, I think for her, is that it helped her connect to some other great people in the Law Society. She was exposed to a number of things, and you can probably better to talk to her about the experiences that she had. But I can tell you what happened from my side, and that is that I got one of my best friends, and she was a companion, a listening ear, somebody to have fun with. She made wonderful contributions, meaningful contributions to the operations committee, and ultimately then helped the Law Society be a better place and organization. So I just really admire Sarah. And then, you know, further into my term, she had a second child. She had to take a little break, and we worked around that, and she continued to be just a really important part of the operations committee. So I learned from her that sometimes it's hard and you take some risks, but by stepping up and saying yes, that some really good things can happen. Just in my last minute here, my wife Liz, before we even got married, she made a decision for herself. If she got married and were to have children, that it was her goal to be able to be a stay-at-home mom. And so we tried to make that work. She's a very capable person, a very strong personality. She's a leader. She's outgoing. She's fun. She's talented, and just an amazing woman. And as we went along with adding more children to our family, becoming more complex, and she needed outlets. She needed ways to express herself and to step away from some of the work in our home and with our children. And so we're constantly looking for ways for her to do that. Ultimately, she got invited to produce the junior high musical. Okay, well, that was right up her alley. Lots of details, get to do music, get to hang out with their kids as friends, and be involved in the school. She was in her happy place. But boy, it was hard on our family because she was gone, and it was stressful, and I had a lot going on, and things weren't getting done at home, and there was some conflict and all these things that started happening. And after she did this, they asked her to do it for the next year. And so I approached her in probably not a very tactful way and said, are you sure you want to do this? Because this didn't really work out very well for all of us. And she's like, hey, it worked out great for me. Maybe it didn't work out so well for you. And maybe you can change a little bit. And that was a really kind of sobering moment for me, because it really sunk in how much she needed to do this thing, and that I needed to step up to help her. And I learned a good lesson from that. And that is that when we say yes and take on things that stretch us and make us grow, that we can count on people to support us in those roles. It doesn't mean they have to sign up to do that for life. But I think those that are around us and are close to us, it's okay to ask favors. It's okay to ask them for your support and adapt. And I think that if you have kind of the courage and the faith to do that, and again, using agency in a good way, that our Heavenly Father can bless you. He can support you. He can raise people up to help you succeed in whatever it is that you feel like you need to take on. I just feel so privileged to be with this wonderful group of people, all of you. And thank you. Thank you for your contributions in your home, in your communities, in the legal profession, and anything else that you're doing. I would love to support you or help you in any way, and feel free to reach out to me if you feel like there's something that I could do to help you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Josh. That was beautiful, and beautiful setting, even with the little photo bombers going on back there. But we really appreciate that. And I really felt that. So we really appreciate that. Feel free to stick around for as long as you can. And we appreciate all the work that you're doing right now too, and helping the church.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Okay, thanks. Before we move on to our next speaker, I did want to share one more thing. We do have speaker gifts, and because we can't hand them out during this Zoom call, I did want to share that this is the speaker gift we're getting everyone. It's a book by former First Lady Michelle Obama, who's an attorney who's also served in community and politics and in the profession. And so she's kind of covering all the things we're talking about and lots of leadership. So this will be the book that we will be giving to all of our speakers. So just wanted to give you a little preview ahead of time. So I will turn it back to Jenny now.
Thank you, Susannah. And thank you so much, Josh, for being here with us in your palace in Vienna. We can all I can picture it. I'm glad that you're there doing that. And I'm so grateful for your dedication. It really is, extremely fitting that you would step out, because that's what you've always done for us all. And I'm very grateful for all your support for women in law and your great leadership in the Law Society and in the church. So thank you, Josh. We're moving on now to our keynote speaker for this plenary session, who is Annette Jarvis. And I have the great opportunity of introducing Annette. Annette Jarvis is the current Women in Law chair. She took over from Josh Randall just at our last leadership conference. And Annette is truly an incredible leader. And I'm going to just tell you a tiny bit about her so that she has plenty of time. She is a shareholder at Greenberg Troreg LLP. She practices business, bankruptcy, and restructuring law and has done for over 30 years. She has clients throughout the country. She served as an expert witness, including an international arbitration proceeding under the ICSID. Annette serves on several professional boards. She's the board secretary on the executive committee of the American College of Bankruptcy. And she also has key positions on other boards, including the Turnaround Management Association and the Mountain Desert IWIRC Network. Annette's received many professional awards by different organizations, including from the M&A Advisor, the Turnaround Management Association. She was Lawyer of the Year for the Utah Bar Association. She was the Distinguished Attorney of the Year from the Utah chapter of Federal Bar Association. She received the Honored Alumni Award from BYU Law School. She's been in the top 10 Mountain State Super Lawyers and Best Lawyers Lawyer of the Year. Annette has been a frequent lecturer and writer on bankruptcy and insolvency law topics. In the community, she's also been extremely active. She's received many community awards, the Christine Durham Public Service Award, the Women Lawyers of Utah Mentoring Award, the Dorothy Merrill Brothers Award for the Advancement of Women in the Legal Profession. She's currently serving in the community on the Utah Symphony Executive Committee and the Utah Mountain of Contemporary Arts Board as their treasurer. Some personal information about Annette, which was not obtained from her, but from her lifelong friend, Susan Sessions, who I know well, says that Annette is absolutely good at everything she does, including art, cooking, sewing, which includes smocking for her children and grandchildren, which is a skill I wish I had. And unusually, she is very skilled at Polynesian crafts, which she learned on a summer semester at BYU Hawaii. She loves to read, she loves to travel. She's very faithful in her religion, and she is a very kind person, and I can certainly vouch for that. Annette has always been devoted to her studies. She's super smart naturally. She was the class valedictorian in high school, which Susan went to high school with her, so she knows. And she told me a story, and Annette, if these details are a tiny bit wrong, you can let us know, but she was pregnant in law school, 9 months pregnant at finals time. And the story goes that she had the baby and then showed up the next day to take her law school final. So she's really something. One great thing about Annette is, according to Susan, she doesn't need much sleep, which is something I wish I had, so that's fabulous. Annette is married with 5 children and many grandchildren, and her youngest, her baby, had her first baby this past summer. Annette has been active in the J. Reuben Clark Law Society for many years, including being the Salt Lake City chapter chair, the founding chair of the Women in Law Committee. So we have a huge debt of gratitude to Annette for that. and the chair of the Finance Committee. And as we said, she's currently the chair of the Law Society. So grateful to learn from Annette's wisdom, and we are going to turn the time now over to Annette to have her speak to us about leadership in the Law Society. Thank you, Annette.
Thanks, Jenny. And yes, Susan and I have known each other since we were 15 years old, and before she actually joined the church. So we have a long history. Her husband, Don, has been a long-time supporter and been involved in the J.R.C.L.S. Law Society. And I have to confess that some of the reason that I stayed totally involved in the Law Society was I knew I could see Don and Susan on a regular basis. So, friendships you make through the Law Society, are important. So thank you for that. So last week I was talking to one of my younger women colleagues at the lack of pipeline of women attorneys in our area of the law. She'd been at a national conference in Nashville where she met with other business bankruptcy attorneys and insolvency professionals. And they were talking about the future of some of the women's organizations that we have started and sponsored in our area of the law. And they looked at themselves as leaders of today, but recognized there was a dearth of upcoming women professionals to take their place. And this is a problem that I don't want to see happen to the Law Society. Building up a pipeline of women who can and will step up to leadership roles is essential to the future of this organization. And we, I think, as you heard Josh say as well, as the leadership of the Law Society, recognize the importance of diversity and inclusion in the health and mission of our organization. And we have included this as one of the major current focuses of the Law Society. We're committed to build up a pipeline of women who can help us move this organization forward. So as I address this topic, I'm going to give you first some background of my own journey into leadership in my career and in the Law Society, including a discussion of different kinds of leadership that we as women trained in the law can provide, which I want you to think of more broadly. My experience with both the importance of and challenges for women in leadership, and then my vision for the importance of increasing women in leadership in the Law Society. So first, let me go to my own journey. And it wasn't one day after I had my baby that I took my law exams. It was a couple days later. So it did get at least a couple days to recover. But I had my law book studying in the hospital as I had my baby. As Jenny said, I have 5 children. And as she said, my oldest son was born right before finals in my second year of law school. My husband started medical school during my 3rd year of law school. So between taking care of a constantly sick baby, my husband's commuting to Salt Lake to attend medical school and staying with his grandmother to save on gas, and my finishing law school, it was a year that even now, I don't even know how we managed it, but we did. My youngest child is the first of my children to follow me in my profession, probably because she was the only one born after my working at home period, where the rest of my children formed the opinion that law was boring. She is now a first-year student at BYU Law and is herself as the mother of a darling baby boy that was born just 2 days before my own birthday in July. And her baby is my 8th grandchild and is an absolute joy. So as you've heard from the introduction that Jenny so kindly gave, and I love the fact that you added all those fun things from Susan that she knows about me that we don't always get to share in our professional setting. But I've reached recognition as one of the elite specialists in my area of law, which is business bankruptcy. And I've spent most of my career in big law and have served in numerous law firm management roles. I've held and do hold numerous leadership roles in professional and non-profit organizations. And thanks really to the inspiration of Josh Randall and his absolute commitment to diversity and inclusion in the Law Society, I'm succeeding him as the new chair of the J.R.C.L.S. Law Society, a position I'm thrilled to hold because I love the Law Society and I love its amazing members throughout the world, and that love is boundless. So I did not originally intend to go into the area of business bankruptcy law. It arose simply from a need to find a job to support our family, as my husband attended medical school followed by residency and fellowship. While my academic performance in law school was stellar, it was a time when there were few opportunities for women in Salt Lake where I needed to find a job, and particularly for women like me who were mothers. I cringe in remembering the questions asked me when I graduated from a law school, including how I could possibly be a good lawyer if I was a mother, and how I could possibly be a good mother if I was a lawyer. I'm glad that we have made enough progress that I hope these types of questions would never be tolerated today. I was fortunate because of my academic record to be offered a clerkship with the bankruptcy judge, and what started out as a means to an end in simply finding a job turned into an enduring passion for the area of business restructuring and bankruptcy. I love this area of law with its mix of litigation and transactional law, its openness to the creative use of the law to find business solutions, its ever-developing body of law, including numerous circuit splits and circuit splits in the making, and its importance in a global sense to our economy and in a personal sense to the jobs and lives of many individuals. Some of you may know that my pathway to where I am today was not a straight line, but was a very crooked path forged out of what I felt was best for my family while being fortunate enough to have increasingly important work opportunities and responsibilities. After finishing my clerkship, I negotiated an unheard part-time arrangement so I could both meet the responsibilities of supporting my growing family as a lawyer while my husband was busy with his demanding course of medical training. I ended up working for 16 years part-time, in negotiating novel part-time arrangements at 2 different firms and consulting with women in many other firms and with bar associations to help them develop part-time policies to make them more generally available for women and men in our profession. 7 of the 16 years in which I worked part-time were spent working in a remote home office so we could accommodate our dual career marriage and our growing number of children. My home office experience predated our pandemic home office experience by more than 20 years, and what is at a time before internet. I had to learn to use a computer, my 25-pound portable computer, and to transmit documents over phone lines from computer to computer. I taught my children never to answer the phone because it might be a business client, and for the most part, if you didn't count that at least one night a week when I would work all night to draft agreements or briefs, it worked amazingly well. There were some embarrassing experiences, like when my 3-year-old daughter picked up the phone extension during a tense negotiation with the opposing counsel and hearing a man's voice said, "Daddy?" While I was horrified that my less than professional working environment had been exposed, the opposing counsel was so taken aback by the experience that it opened the door for a more reasonable conversation and a lasting professional friendship. During the time that I worked part-time from home, I was able to volunteer in my children's school classes, volunteer as a den mother and a Girl Scout leader, and support my children's activities in sports and music. It was during this period that I really came to appreciate my training as a lawyer and the opportunities this training alone gives us for leadership in our communities. While living in Nevada, our elementary school boundaries were rezoned in a way that created tremendous conflicts among the parents and the school district. In helping parents in our school to organize and express their concerns in a constructive way to the school board, I ended up being drafted to chair an ad hoc committee to study the situation for the school board and make recommendations. This gathering of facts from the school district and analysis of various options to suggest an alternative solution to the problem that gained consensual support from the parents, the school district, and the school board was an accomplishment that I attribute to my legal training. It was also in Nevada that I began working with nonprofit organizations at the behest of my husband, who as a state health officer was trying to assist the Lupus Foundation of Nevada in its organizational problems to become eligible for national funding. This wasn't in my normal bailiwick of legal experience, but it was something as a lawyer that I knew I could learn, and I did. These experiences led to other opportunities to leadership because of my legal training in Colorado in the community I next moved to. I negotiated with our school in order to help my Jewish neighbor and good friend change the school's holiday policies to include celebration of Hanukkah and other religious traditions in addition to Christmas. I once again ended up as a leader of a group of parents addressing the school board to resolve school organizational problems in a neighboring school. And after our move to Salt Lake, through hours and hours of pro bono work, I became an expert on nonprofit boards and governance, particularly in the arts community. I've done pro bono work for the Utah Symphony Utah for 20 years. And as noted, I currently sit on its executive committee, chair its governance committee, and serve as board secretary. I also began working with the Utah Museum of Contemporary Art because they had financial difficulties, which is typical of many nonprofit organizations. I helped them work through a financial stabilization plan and ended up again, being drafted to currently serve as their board treasurer, because reading and understanding financial documents is something I learned in my legal practice. I also sit on a committee organized by community business leaders and arts organization to advocate for the continuance of public funding for the arts. And the arts organizations I serve provide tremendous services to the community in which I live, not only providing live music, wonderful art exhibits, but educational outreach programs and support programs for families, youth, and children. And these experiences of negotiating solutions for problems in schools and providing services to nonprofit, those are really leadership skills that we who have attended law school can offer, whether or not we are currently practicing law, and they're needed in our community. Leadership opportunities in our profession came later than leadership opportunities in the community for me. And I think this is not atypical of women in my experience. My decision to work part-time as a lawyer at the beginning of my career, and then in a home office for 7 years, was done out of what worked for our family, which was of importance to me, but was not a pathway that I thought could bring me success in my career. It was a surprise to me that at the end of this part-time period, I ended up both with success in my career and the time I wanted with my family. I was fortunate that I began practicing bankruptcy law at a time when the law in my area changed significantly, leaving me in a position after clerking of knowing as much about the new law as anyone. I was trained by some incredible partners who saw me as someone worth investing in and gave me lots of responsibility and opportunities to handle difficult cases early in my career and enhance my reputation. However, my decision to work part-time also meant that it took me much longer to become a partner in big law, as my firm was not willing to consider part-time partners at the time. And that view, fortunately, has changed in most firms. So for many years, I was dubbed of counsel, even though I ran complex cases and supervised other partners in the firm. But during this period, I was fortunate to be introduced to the person I consider my career mentor, David Bix. He was a corporate partner in our New York office, and thus not even a partner in my practice group. After working with him on a case for one of his important clients, implementing a creative strategy and achieving an extraordinary result, he became my most fervent advocate, arranging for me to handle extraordinarily difficult, large, and interesting cases that allowed me to develop a national reputation. He's now in his 80s, but he and his wife, Marion, still treat me like family. It was many years after his sponsorship of me that I learned that not only his father, who had been a federal judge, but his mother had been a lawyer. No wonder he was such a great advocate for women in the law. We all need career sponsors who recognize our abilities and advocate for opportunities and recognition for us. For us to become career mentors or sponsors is another type of leadership where we put ourselves on the line for the development of others. If we are able to have a pipeline, if we are to have a pipeline of women lawyers, this type of leadership is essential. After I went back to work full-time in big law, and as my children got older and left home for college, I expanded my leadership skills and opportunities to professional organizations who are always looking for volunteers willing to devote the time necessary to make the organization work. I ran the ABI Rocky Mountain Conference as co-chair for 10 years. I joined with friends in Colorado to start the Utah section of the Rocky Mountain chapter of the Turnaround Management Association. And from that platform, I served on the board of the Rocky Mountain chapter and eventually served on the executive committee of the Global Turnaround Management Association for several years. I also started the Mountain Desert Network of iWork. That's the name that was come up for a restructuring women's organization, originally combining with friends in Colorado, Utah, Nevada, and Arizona to establish this professional women's organization, again, providing opportunities for other women to advance in my area of practice and fostering the next generation of women. I currently serve, as noted, on the executive committee of the American College of Bankruptcy, and we are working hard to foster the development of diversity, equity, and inclusion in both the business and legal sides of bankruptcy practice. But from all this service, I not only helped expand and reach the reach of these organizations, but I've made wonderful professional friends from all over the world. And again, investing in and creating leadership opportunities for other women is essential in ensuring a pipeline of women leaders in our profession. I also began to be asked to assume leadership roles in law firms in which I practice. I've served on 2 management committees and as the managing partner of 2 offices. Finally, and most important for today, is my pathway to leadership in the Law Society, a pathway that I hope I can inspire all of you to follow. Many of you know my story of how I became involved in the Law Society in the late 1990s. I was invited by my partner to attend a Law Society luncheon in Salt Lake City. The topic was interesting and informative, but as we walked back to the office, I asked my partner if he'd noticed anything strange about the luncheon lecture. When he said he had not, I pointed out to him that I had been the only woman in the room and asked him what kind of organization was this that had no women. He honestly had not noticed this fact and was horrified by my comment. It was literally only a week or 2 later that, because of his prompting, I was asked to join the board of the Salt Lake chapter of the J. Clark Law Society. From that starting point, I served as the education chair and the finance chair, and finally the chapter chair of the Salt Lake chapter. As the chapter chair in Salt Lake, I tried a new approach to building up a coalition of religious lawyers in our city and invited friends of other faiths who were very involved in their own faith's charitable initiatives to join the board and work with us to better serve our community as religious lawyers of various faiths. I thus had friends from the Jewish, Catholic, Greek, Orthodox, and Episcopalian faiths join us, our LDS board members, to support and access charitable and family services from all these faiths in our community. During this time, I was also working with my alma mater, BYU Law School, to help them recruit more women to the law school. In the process of working with Scott Cameron on this project, I shared with him a talk I had given in church explaining issues that working women face as active LDS members. After he and Jane Weiss read the talk, they asked me if they could publish the piece in the Clark Memorandum. The piece started with a very personal story about my grandmother, her experience with wage discrimination during the Depression, and her influence on my life and my choices. And I wasn't sure I wanted to publish the piece. Scott's persistence prevailed, and I rewrote the talk as an article entitled "Thoughts on the Family, A Proclamation to the World," which was published in the Clark Memorandum in 2006. I was honestly surprised by the positive response to the article. Indeed, the continuing positive response I still get to the article, not only from LDS lawyers, but also from non-LDS women lawyers in particular, who are searching for a way to balance family and work life. This article prompted Joe Bentley, then chair of the Law Society, to reach out to me and ask me to become the first chair of the Women in the Law Committee. Our original committee was designed to be inclusive of all women with a law degree, because all legally trained women can contribute to and are important to the Law Society and to the communities worldwide that we serve. As we formulated Will, in addition to my background in big law, we included women who had never practiced law after receiving their law degree, women who had left the practice of law to raise children, newly minted women lawyers, women in smaller women-owned law firms, and women in public service, in establishing a home for growing the involvement of women in the Law Society. And we also included our token male. Bill Atkin was brave enough to join us as a former chair of the Law Society to emphasize the importance of this newly created committee. I've watched Will grow and expand, and the women involved and under the excellent leadership of women like Jenny Wilson and her predecessors. And I'm tremendously proud of the work and influence this committee has had on the Law Society. I love Will, and I'm so grateful for Joe Bentley's inspired reach out to create such a great place of belonging for women in the Law Society. After serving as Will chair, I served as finance committee chair, where my skills developed as a bankruptcy attorney could be of assistance in helping with budgeting, retaining appropriate cash reserves, setting procedures for reimbursement, and assisting chapters in their own financial planning. I became involved in the Clark Law Society Advisors and was honestly surprised when Josh Randall called me to ask me if I would accept the job as chair-elect of the Law Society. However, when he asked me, I felt this was an answer to my own prayers in finding a way to serve after being blessed to recover from some very serious health problems in my life. When I talk about all of these leadership opportunities, I don't mean to minimize the challenges women face in assuming leadership roles. I'm very aware of these challenges and have dealt with a tremendous amount of discrimination and gender bias in my career because of my willingness to assume leadership roles. There's also the difficulty of finding time to volunteer as we are busy with our families, our church responsibilities, and simply living our lives. Despite the difficulties in stepping up to leadership roles as women, we cannot change things unless we collectively are willing to work together to do so. I follow the writing and studies that Susan Madsen, a professor of leadership at the John N. Huntsman School of Business at Utah State University and the founder of the Utah Women in Leadership Project, sets forth. Reading hers and other studies demonstrate that women leaders are needed to make organizations, our profession, and indeed our world better. In the United States, particularly in big law, we still struggle in our profession generally with the advancement and parity for women. The last statistics I reviewed showed only 18% of women equity partners in big firms, despite women entering our profession in near equal numbers to men since 1988. Significant disparity in earnings continue, with women earning roughly only 80% of the earnings of their male counterparts. And it still remains true that very few women are included in management in large law firms in the United States. Despite this somewhat depressing backdrop in the US, we as a law society can be a leader to showcase the leadership qualities and importance of the engagement of women in our profession. And we are aided by the fact that we are an international organization. So I hope we can get new ideas from our members in other countries. When it comes to leadership traits, research by the Pew Research Center indicates that women are perceived to be equal or superior to men in the leadership qualities of being honest, intelligent, hardworking, ambitious, compassionate, outgoing, and creative. I read an article recently from the Harvard Business School identifying empathy as an important leadership quality, something in my experience women tend to excel in, which was not been previously necessarily identified as important in leadership. At a recent J. Reuben Clark Law Society leadership meeting, we were fortunate to be taught leadership skills by Dr. Ava Weitzman and Jane Mitchell, focusing on the importance of listening skills and innovating thinking in leadership. Again, qualities I have seen demonstrated by many women in our profession over my career. Indeed, when I look at the leadership traits of our Savior, they are traits that have historically been identified as feminine traits, but not truly recognized as they should be as not only religious, but important secular leadership traits. I believe that we as women often underestimate our leadership abilities. However, we can change this, particularly if we work together. A study of corporate boards by the Wellesley Center for Women found that having a critical mass of 3 or more women can cause a fundamental change in the boardroom and enhance corporate governance. I can tell you from my own experience in serving on boards that this is absolutely true. One woman alone has difficulty in making an impact, but women together can reinforce messages and new ways of looking at or solving problems that might otherwise be ignored. And we need allies like Josh Randall, Joe Bentley, Bill Atkin, to listen to us, to include us, to help us feel we belong and help us to influence this important organization. While women need to step up to embrace leadership opportunities in the law society, I also recognize another barrier to service for women, balancing our many commitments and finding time to serve. I always say that women can have it all, but they can't have it all at the same time. I also think we need to understand ourselves as individuals. Each of us are different and have different capacities and circumstances in our lives. We should never compare ourselves to others because we never fully know the lives and circumstances of others, only of ourselves. We need to access what works for us as individuals, assess what works for us as individuals, and act on that, not on what others expect of us. And I recognize that sometimes this means no, a conditional or a qualified yes, or even an ask me later. Any of these answers is acceptable as long as you stay open to the willingness to serve and to exercise your capacity for leadership as you can. As you can probably tell, I have a hard time saying no to requests for assistance. It's something I've had to learn and continue to learn with a lot of help from my husband, who watches me try to balance everything and keep all the balls in the air, only to have a ball sometimes drop, as is the case with everyone. We can neither expect perfections from ourselves or from others. We simply do our best. You may think from my current resume that I'm extraordinary, but I'm not. I'm just like you. I have been just been doing this a long time. And so you don't see the peaks and valleys of my life, but just the overall summary. There were times when I was simply head down with no time outside of family work and church. There were times, as you can tell, where my volunteer work mirrored my commitments to my children, focused on the schools they attended or the activities they were involved in. There have been other times since my children got older that I dived into leadership opportunities and volunteer work with a passion. And passion is important. You need to involve yourself in organizations you care about, because otherwise it becomes only a burden and not a blessing. As I hope you can tell, I do feel a passion for the work and members of the Law Society, and I want your involvement in the Law Society to also be a blessing and not a burden. We in the Law Society can be flexible and work with you in whatever situation you find yourself. If you will simply engage with the time and capacity you have, we will work with you. Don't give up on leadership roles that we need you to help us with. Don't let yourself get overwhelmed with the service you give to this organization. Help us with ideas of how we can help you. Maybe you need a co-chair or pairing with someone in my stage of life with more time to serve. We can find solutions to help you be involved with whatever time you have to volunteer. We want your ideas. We want your involvement. There are as many models for making volunteering in this organization work as there are leaders and members in the Law Society. As to challenges that are unique to women, let me give you a few suggestions based on my own experiences. Again, I don't want these challenges to impede your willingness to step up as leaders in the Law Society. First, find support in other women and be a voice for speaking up for and in supporting and promoting other women. We need multiple voices of women to impact this organization. As Amy Schulman, then Executive Vice President and General Counsel of Pfizer, said in a New York Times article I read in 2012 in advising other women in the law, quote, "You need to spend political capital, be unafraid to introduce people, compliment somebody when it's deserved, and stand up for something you really believe in, rather than just go with the flow. I don't mean being a perennial troublemaker, but it's about having conviction and courage. Spend that political capital you earn by being intellectually credible, by being a fighter for the people on your team when appropriate, and by arguing for principles that matter. These are the qualities that give you credit," close quote. Second, figure out how to effectively communicate as a woman. I've watched the bias that allow women less bandwidth of what is acceptable behavior as compared to men. It is unfair and irritating to watch the double standard that either intentionally or unintentionally is set for women. But we have to be heard and we have to work around that. We have to call it out when it happens, particularly to other women. I've learned through my own experiences that despite my many accomplishments, I don't get immediate deference that many men do. We as women have to prove ourselves through thoughtful and informed communications that also recognize and try to understand another's point of view. We are good at this, and we can be recognized as problem solvers that we are and add new perspectives to strategic discussions. Third, we need to find and promote allies. Women's influence can never expand in our profession until we have buy-in and support from our male colleagues. I served on a firm compensation committee where the initial discussions were between 4 men and me. I asked them to take some gender bias training with me because women are also gender biased, to make sure we were properly considering the submissions we obtained from our women partners who tended to express themselves differently from men. I also learned the importance of one-on-one discussions with many of my male colleagues prior to meetings to make sure my viewpoint was heard, understood, and considered. There are ways to earn the respect of our male colleagues by taking the time to build relationships of trust. That investment is worth it. Fourth, a study done by the ABA Women in the Profession identified 2 characteristics of successful women lawyers: grit and growth mentality. Grit is defined as perseverance and passion for long-term goals. A growth mentality is defined as a view that one's abilities can be developed. You can learn new things and adapt to new situations. My own difficult experience as a woman in the law has helped me develop courage, mental toughness, adaptability to working with difficult personalities, forging new approaches to work-life balance, caring about and serving clients well, patience, strategic thinking, and appreciation for faithful friends, clients, and colleagues. When faced with challenges, look at them as opportunities to build and demonstrate leadership qualities. Fifth, and most importantly, don't forget who you are at core. Be kind, be loving, be Christ-like. This is who we are and who we must be as leaders, future leaders, and daughters of our Heavenly Father. We can set the ultimate example in the way we embrace and support each other and the members of the Law Society, and in the way we serve our families, our colleagues, and our communities. At the Leadership Conference, I set forth 4 goals I have for the Law Society, and I need your help in reaching those. First, a goal to increase our communal impact. Individually, we can make a difference, but our abilities to act as a community of faith-based lawyers, can reach beyond our impact as individuals. Acting together as women, we can make a greater impact on this Law Society, and as a Law Society, we can make a greater impact on our communities, our countries, on behalf of downtrodden and forgotten of God's children. Second, a goal to increase our identity as a service organization. I want the Law Society to be branded as a religiously based service organization that will be welcomed in our various countries and communities. I've watched with concern the loss of appreciation for people of faith in our communities, despite the fact that the traditional foundation of our communities is rooted in our religious organizations, which have provided services for the poor, for refugees, for new immigrants, for addiction recovery, for rehabilitation after serving prison sentences, and for educational opportunities. As a Law Society, we educate on the value of religious freedom and the growth of religious communities that it fosters. But I believe that message can be accentuated through service, through a reminder of the value religious organizations and people of faith bring to our communities. I'd also like to see us continue to look for opportunities to work on interfaith initiatives and combining with other service organizations. Third, as we work to expand as a worldwide organization, a goal to celebrate the strength and growing diversity of our organization and what that gives us, and to work to actively expand the inclusion of diverse people and ideas. As a minority in our profession, I know from personal experience what inclusion, indeed what exclusion feels like. Diversity is of no value if minorities do not feel they are heard, listened to, valued, actively welcomed, not just expected to fit in, accepted as offering important new ideas and perspectives, and that they belong because of what we as an organization do in every sense of the word. This is how I want you, as our women leaders and prospective leaders, to feel. Fourth, as I referenced early, a goal to recognize there are many ways we can serve in this organization and to make room for all. We need you in the Law Society, not because we are the same as women, but because we are all different. I have a good friend in Louisiana, David Rubin, who I worked with closely on a complicated case years ago. His father had been a district court judge in Louisiana and later a judge on the Fifth Circuit. In 1973, Ruth Bader Ginsburg brought the case of Healy versus Edwards in his father's court, arguing for the right for women to serve on juries in the state of Louisiana. His father's opinion in upholding the right for women to serve on juries was quoted by Ruth Bader Ginsburg when she was nominated to the Supreme Court. I share his words with you because it states so well why we need you all to step up as our current and future leaders in the Law Society. Quote, females as individuals bring to juries qualities of human nature and varieties of human experience different from those of males, and a diversity of temperament among themselves completely heterogeneous. Their absence from jury panels is significant, not because all women react alike, but because they contribute a distinctive medley of views influenced by differences in biology, cultural impact, and life experiences, indispensable if the jury is to comprise a cross-section of the community, close quote. I hope that you each know that I want to create a safe place for honest conversation. I'm here to support you, to listen to you, to learn from you, and to serve you. Reach out to me and help me do that. I want you to feel that you belong in and to this organization. Years ago, I was once told I was needed in the Law Society to change it, to make it a place where women felt invited and included. It is a mission we are still working on. Now I'm telling you the same thing I was told. We need you. Please step up and help us. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak to all of you and hope to get to know all of you better. And I leave this with my testimony of the gospel and also of this great organization and it's good that it can do in the world. And I say it's in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Annette, we thank you, truly. You are a perfect example of how to be a leader, how to find balance in your life with all the complication that we as women, encounter, how to mentor others and be a support, and really how to step up. If we could all be like you, Annette, the world would be an amazing place. And we thank you for all you've done in it. Thank you for sharing your story and your wisdom, and thank you for inspiring us. Just from hearing you, Annette, I want to do a better job, and I appreciate, and we all appreciate all that you do and all that you are. We are.
If you have any questions, if there's time, I'm happy to answer things or suggestions. I'm here.
Just going to say that, Annette. If there anybody that has any questions or thoughts for Annette that they'd like to ask or speak.
I have one. I'll bring up. My daughter is works in big law in Washington, D.C. She graduated from Stanford Law School. She's been involved in the Federalist Society. She was involved in Women in Law and the J. Reuben Clark Law Society and law school, but has not felt any desire or need to be involved in the Law Society since graduating. And I'm not quite sure how to reach out to her for that. I've encouraged that, and I don't know whether it's that Washington, D.C. area is, I don't know, it's just harder to get around, but do you have any tips on how we can find a place? She can find a place for that. I think she has felt that it's been mainly men in that area that's been involved, and she has not felt comfortable. This is very open-ended.
It is actually one of the conversations we had, in one of our board meetings about, making sure women are feeling included. I mean, we need to get a better, I guess there are two ways to deal with this. One is from her point of view, but one is from us as an organizational point of view. We need to do a better job. And I had this conversation about how, well, we're open to women, we're inviting. I said, well, that's not good enough. If you are, the minority in the room, for it always to be on your, it's your responsibility to fit in and to get in there and, find a place for yourself. That doesn't work. We have to do a better job of reaching out and saying, we want you, we need to include you. And I would say that, that part of that is we are going to work on better training our chapter leaders and also better connecting up our will committee, which is, amazing and has amazing members, to our chapters, because I think a closer connecting with the will committee, our overall will committee to the chapters will help them again invite and embrace and help women feel like they belong. And I would say, the other thing I would say to her is sort of the message I just gave, and I actually reach out to young women. I think my daughter's probably on the line because I told you have to be part of the J. Reuben Clark Law Society. And I was with a friend whose granddaughter is currently a first-year student at Emory. And I said, okay, give me her name. I'm totally going to reach out to her because we need her too. Is to recognize, how much they are needed in our society and how they can make a difference, honestly. When you look at where can I have an impact, we do incredible work, throughout the world, but we need more women involved in our society. And we've been working on it. We're still working on it. And it's disheartening to think she doesn't feel, like she's needed or, belongs. So, and give me her name, by the way, and I'll give her a call, seriously, because I would love, to meet her and encourage her. We need young women in this society.
Absolutely. I had one question for you, Annette. You spoke of the work, we're talking about work-life balance, and you said that when your kids got older, you were able to step up further into leadership, which is something that I also aspire to do more. But now I'm finding with 15 grandchildren, I wonder, I still am having trouble finding the work-life balance because, they're little people that I also want to spend time with. And, once you get to this stage, how quickly that goes. How do you manage that part of it?
It is never ending. I mean, you kind of think, I'm going to get to a point where I'll have more time. And you're absolutely right. Being a mother never ends, because then you become a grandmother and there's, always issues you're dealing with. So you're always going to deal with work-life balance. One of the things that I did, and my children can tell you this, is kind of incorporate them into, you know, my legal practice. So for instance, my daughter, Margaret, who is a first-year law student, I took her with me to the leadership conference they did, or the annual conference they did years ago in Malibu when she was, I think, 12 years old. There, we met Cynthia Lang, who had also brought her 12-year-old daughter. And, you know, and so we were able to spend time together, and, you know, we enjoyed that. We forgot about that. But when they were freshmen together at BYU, they randomly got assigned as roommates and became best friends, you know, all from, again, taking her and including her. And, you know, grandchildren can do that too. There are things we do, you know, when we go to conferences, to annual conference, that we can bring them and be involved with. I've always took my kids to legal conferences. I would take one at a time, starting when they were in 5th grade. So they got to go with me. They had to sit through boring dinners with my colleagues and, you know, do their homework while they sat through boring lectures. But, you know, in the afternoons, we would do fun things together and spend time together. And those were great memories for them. So, you know, be creative in the way you know, look at this, and in the way you take on positions, because they can enjoy and learn from them too.
Thank you. That's great advice for me, and I think for all of us. Thank you, Annette. Anybody else have a question for Annette? We've got to wrap up here, but if there was one more, we'd take it.
I do have a question, actually. I was interested to hear about all the work that you did advocating for your children to the school board. We've had some issues in our current school district, and I was just curious to know maybe some of the best means you felt helped you in advocating for your children. I've spoken to the school board during public comment at their school board meetings and sent emails, but don't feel like it's been very effective. Just wondered if you had any other suggestions.
One is organizing. In both the instances where I, you know, worked with school boards to get them to change their mind about things, I worked within to get a group of parents, so that it wasn't just one person speaking, it was a whole bunch of us speaking, because there is, you know, a power in a group. And then I also, you know, did, you know, as we as lawyers do, you know, my homework in, you know, kind of analyzing the situation, looking at not just being criticizing, but offering, you know, the possibility of other solutions, and solutions that might be, you know, more palatable to all of the constituencies involved. So organization, you know, homework, you know, in kind of researching, and then there is the one-on-one, you know, conversations that you do need to have with, you know, people that are important constituents, where you get them to open their minds to consider the possibilities of different solutions before a public meeting, where sometimes it's difficult to embrace kind of new ideas or new thoughts in that public setting.
Thank you so much. That's awesome.
Thank you, everybody, for your participation, and thank you once again, Annette. Knowing Annette, I'm certain she'd be happy to entertain more questions offline and continue her support and mentoring of all of us as women. So thanks for that continuing support. I look so forward to Annette's 2 years as chair of the JRCLS. I'm going to turn the time over to Susannah, who is going to explain the breakouts, and then we were going to move into our breakout portion of our conference.